Boo, and the Ghost, and September 9th was the Crash Bandicoot 25th anniversary, one of my favorite video game sagas of all times. And I know a lot of things I shouldn't know, yet they are in my head. Like fun facts, character details, cancelled games, this saga has everything. So, to pay tribute, I'll tell you all the games that released on Crash 25 years of life. Before we start the video, actually this video is edited by a friend of mine. He has a YouTube channel, I'll leave in the description, I trust him to edit this video. He's another huge Crash fan, but let's start now. It all started with Naughty Dog and two important developers, Andy Gavin and Jason Robin. This is a very interesting story on how they needed to hack the PS1, because 3D games went for the PS1. Most of the games like Rayman were 2D or 3D, with 2D sprites, or a combination of both, and Crash Bandicoot was born. Some levels were indeed 3D, while levels like Sunset Vista or The Great Gate are 2D. And you know what? Crash Bandicoot was a huge hit. A lot of people call Crash Sony's unofficial mascot. And of course, when you have a good product, you need to keep it up. And bam! The best Crash Bandicoot game in my opinion released. Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. With more 3D levels, better graphics, and new characters. This one is a hell of a sequel. And then, of course, another sequel. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warp. This one is more divisive, because it has a lot of vehicles and less platforming, but still, another hit. Now it all seems like happiness and money, but behind the scenes there was abuse and mistreat coming from Universal. You see, Naughty Dog made a deal with Universal. They would give budget for the games, but treat the Naughty Dog employees like garbage. Actually, during Warp's development, it was summer and the sun kept crashing the computers. And the devs kept losing all their progress and Universal wouldn't uninstall fans. After they installed fans, they had to take the team outside the hall, so they had to work on the floor. Naughty Dog was obviously pissed. And they did one last game before leaving Universal, and that was CTR, Crash Team Racing. A racing game that is actually very different from Mario Kart. This one has a unique drifting mechanic, and it's pretty fun in my opinions. Also, now Naughty Dog is also a bad company, so I think more Naughty Dog and Universal would just be fine. Universal wanted money, so they called Eurocom to develop Crash Bash, a party game that had a lot of recycled minigames, but still was fun to play with friends. Then the world was going forward, it was never going to be the same. The PS2 released. And so did Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex. This was a bad game. Like, look at the designs. You could say, oh, but this released at the start of the console. Well, Traveler's Tales, the developer behind Wrath of Cortex, also released this on the Xbox and the GameCube, and they knew what they were doing. After that, Crash had a bumpy path. Wrath of Cortex disappointed many fans and critics. Behind the studio, we enter development hell, with Crash Evolution that turned into Crash Team Insanity and that turned into Half-Baked Game. Crash Team Insanity, known for its glitches, eat levels, missing content, and pretty good music actually, is for a lot of people their favorite Crash game. What? But before we go into that, Crash Nitro Kart. It was like Crash Team Racing with a different story, new characters, but the controls was more heavy. And you didn't really go that fast, a lot of people still prefer CTR, but we got smoother! Back to Twin Insanity now. The Twin Insanity team had bad communication, leading to the game getting reworked a lot of times. A lot of sketches and ideas never came to life, and what we ended up getting wasn't bad, but it could have been 10 times better. I mean, to end my argument, Aqua doesn't even protect you from nitros, and doesn't give you invincibility when you craft the math. Also, a lot of people call Twin an open game, but truthfully Twin is a middle open game because you still go from point A to point B, you just have more space to run. Okay, after we got Team Insanity, then it came Crash Tag Team Racing. And before you go into the comments saying, hold on, Where are the portable games? Where's the US Sprinter? And Crash Purples? And the X99? I'll talk about them someday, not today, no one day, sure, right now I won't. So Crash Tag Team Racing, it was weird, it was a platformer with racing in between, but it was mostly a racing game and you could join other cars. An engine is broken, so a lot of people think of this game just as a weird one, including myself. After this, Crash was never the same. After Crash Tag Team Racing, we got the beat 'em up era, with Crash of the Titans in 2007 and Minor Mutant in 2008. You need to understand something, if Crash had changed a lot in the last years, this was the last straw. Completely designed for every character, and not just physically but on character too. A lot of people think that Titans is still better than Minor Mutant, and I've heard that Titans is actually underrated, but I haven't played Titans, so I won't give an opinion. I played Minor Mutant and I found it boring. So after the fans just didn't like any of this, the saga entered a 9-year hiatus for console games. Let's see why. We're getting a game each year, annual Crash games. Everyone thought that Crash was done for. Cancel games over and over, and just mediocre mobile games seemed like the end of Crash. But at the time, Universal Vivendi Studios turned into Universal Vivendi. Main reason why Crash changed so much. Vivendi was going bankrupt, so Activision bought it, getting a license to Crash, and they knew they had a big franchise on their hands. Not like Universal. And in 2016, we got an announcement to Insane Trilogy, and boy do I love this game! I have already 100% each game on the remastered version, and maybe without Insane Trilogy, we wouldn't have Crash right now. I don't remember what made the original game so good. This was the remake. Recomposed tracks, new models, remake levels, this was the one. After Insane Trilogy, we got Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, a remake of Crash Team Racing with Crash Nitro Kart tracks, and for a lot of people, this is a favorite racing game. I have to admit what they did with Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel was amazing. 1 year of Grand Prix, which are free DLC with new tracks and characters that got forgotten, and even Spyro was here. I guess that's a point for Crash Team Racing that Smash won't get. And finally to where we're now, with Crash 4. This is the first original Crash game since 2008. I really like Crash 4. I mean, it can make me mad. I just want to throw my controller directly to the TV. But like overall, I think it's a good platformer. And last but not least, On the Run. A runner for mobile. That's it. So that was Crash Bandicoot history throughout the years. And it was a bumpy one. Something that affected Crash, it was that I was always changing studio. Crash was all over the place. But at the end, Crash lives once again in the video game world. And it's crazy to imagine that at the end, these 3 characters can live in peace. So, this is the Gamer Ghost, and I say, just be on the Smash already!